o'clock. Maybe we're getting past coffee hour. For John, I'm going to put on a hot pink hot pink, hot pink glasses here. So John, really excited to have you on. Let's get your screen shared. Make sure that's queued up, and I'll do a quick introduction for you. Again, we have a lot of people on here, by the way, and we get this question asked a lot. I mean, we see thousands and thousands of accounting firms every week, and there's so many questions on how to manage and what that looks like, and especially in this new world of 2020. So just a quick introduction on John. He's been a coach and consultant to professional service firms and entrepreneurs since 1994. He's a past president of both the International Coach Federation and the Angel Investor Forum. From 2012 to 2014, he served as entrepreneur in residence for CT Next. His website, ceobootcamp.com, includes resources going back to 2006. He lives in sunny, wonderful, always nice out Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, with his wife, who's making masks to give to neighbors. I have worked with John. I've experienced, John's kind of a sage-like advice and wisdom, and I'm really excited to kind of share his thoughts and his presentations with everyone today. So, John, take it away.
Thank you, David. It's great to be here, and I just want to say it's really a pleasure. I don't have sunglasses on. I don't know if you can see. Is my video coming through? I've got a full screen. Oh, okay, here, start my video. Let me do this. All right, there we go. So I don't have sunglasses on, but I do have a shirt, so we're okay with that. As David said, I've been a business coach for about 25 years. I work with companies about their systems, all the systems that go to building an organization that have nothing to do with the product that you make. I do all the other systems about money, about hiring, about leadership, about planning, that kind of thing. So we're going to get into that today. We have two time frames to talk about. One is BCE, which is before the COVID era, and right now we're in CE, which is the COVID era. We don't know what ACE, after the COVID era, is going to look like, but I'm going to tell you some timeless things about management and leadership that are from before the COVID era, and I'll talk to you about what's different now that we're all working remote. And I'll use this symbol when we talk about the timeless things, and I'll use this symbol when I talk about the Corona era, because it's a crazy time we're in right now. So let's look at what's the difference between leadership and management. Let's say we're all going to get a bunch of people together and we're going to go climb a mountain. The leader is the person who inspires us to follow them. That's the definition of leadership. And they typically do it by saying, oh man, you should see the view from the top. It's amazing. Don't worry about the bug bites, the snakes, the rain. Oh, it's going to be okay. It's going to be so incredible when we get up there. That's the leader who inspires us to go. The manager is the one going, hey, I got something for that bug bites. Here, just put this on. You've got the map, right? Make sure it stays dry. And I think your pack's a little heavy. Let me take some of that load off. That's the manager. And if you're going to build an organization, you need both. You need leadership and you need management. Leadership is the simpler of the two, not necessarily the easier. And leaders do two things. This is from a poll by the Gallup organization. Leaders come in all kinds of personalities. There's extroverts, there's introverts, there's charismatic ones, there's boring ones, but they all do two things. They have a vision where we're going, and they say that vision. They repeat that vision, and they show everybody how your job fits into that vision. They do it over and over and over again till they're bored hearing that vision come out of their mouth, but they keep doing it. That's what leadership is. So what's different about leadership now? Well, now you can't see the future the way you could 6 weeks ago. Your vision might have been, hey, let's talk about where we're going with our firm. We're going to be hiring new people, opening a new office, moving into a new market, whatever. That may be up in the air right now. You can't lead with a vision like that. But what can you do? Well, you can inspire people with the same basic principles of why we're here, how we serve, what value we provide to our clients. Don't overinflate it. Keep it real, but keep reminding them of why we're doing it here. In this article here in this, from the Harvard Business Review, I just found it after I sent David the slides, so I hope he'll send you the new copy. This talks about the psychology of leading in a crisis, and leaders do two things in a crisis. One is contain, and the other is to keep people focused on action. So the first one, contain, means to help to solve the distress to relieve the anxiety. And one of the ways that you can do that that's pretty special for the accounting industry is you're not in the cruise ship business. You're not in the hotel business. You know that when this gets over, people are still going to need your services. And there are going to be people that have businesses out there. They're going to need to pay taxes. They're going to need accounting. So the business is here to stay, and that should relieve some of the anxiety. But then you can help to focus people on what to do now, which is help your clients and move your business forward. Another thing that leaders do is planning. Well, in the old days, like I said 6 weeks ago, our planning was, hey, we look at last year, we tweak some numbers, we plan for this year to be slightly different, but basically in the same direction. Or we say, hey, we've been through a recession before. This is what we did in 2008. We're going to tweak it, and our plan is going to be very similar. Well, this recession is a little different because it's not a financial recession. It's a health crisis that has caused both an economic and a financial recession. So you have to do something different. What do? You do something called scenario planning. There's a longer blog on my website about this, but basically it's you take 4 or 5 different scenarios, and for each one you pretend this is how the future is going to be. So maybe one scenario is the recession's over in 6 months. Maybe another is it's not over for 18 months. Maybe another is somebody gets sick. Maybe another one, don't forget the best case scenario, which is we could come out of this stronger. There might be people that we can hire. There might be competitors that we can buy out. There might be tools or equipment that we can acquire. As I think it was Nate saying, the cost of advertising is down now. So when it's time to do that again, there are different ways to come out of this. That's the best case scenario. So leave that in there. So you have these different scenarios. You have a plan for each. The future will not look like any of them, but it will look like different parts and pieces of each, and then you'll be able to pick and choose from the plans that you've done. And it's a useful technique. It was actually developed in the 1970s by Shell Oil. So that's what you can do, planning that's different now. Let's go back to some of the timeless things about management. There's 2 functions of a manager. One is to help people do their work better, or helping them do things right. Now in this picture, I don't know who's the manager and who's the worker, but that doesn't matter. Somebody's helping somebody here. And the way you help people do their job better is you give them training, you give them tools, you give them expectations. You used to give them office space, don't do that anymore. But that's my point. You give them what they need to do their job, and you help them do it better. That's the first function of management. The second function is to align their work with the rest of the company. So you're helping them do the right things. Where the company is headed, you want them to do work that complements that and is a piece of that, not something that's off in another direction. Sometimes those alignments are work that's valuable right this minute. Sometimes it's planning for the future, but whatever it is, it's your job as a manager to align them that way. Well, what's different now? We're managing all this stuff remotely, and that's very different in lots of different ways. So what's different about managing people remotely? One is they need to see you, and they need to know that you care. In an office situation, that's easy. You bump into people, you ask, how's the weekend, what's going on, et cetera. There's a little more of a social interaction here. You have to do that consciously now. You have to schedule time in your day to check in with people. And you have to tell them, look, I'm going to call you up and just say how you're doing. I don't want, I'm going to talk about work sometimes, but there's times I just want to know, how are you? How's your family? And you want to make it okay if they don't want to talk to you about that stuff. That's okay too, but let them know that you're available. Make it safe for them to talk about being confused or being scared. If you're not confused or scared in these times, you're not paying attention, but that shouldn't be all that you're doing. And you may be scared. You may have a little bit of confusion about where things are going. You can share some of that. You can be human with people. Let them know we're all in this together. We're going to come through this together. So that's what's one of the things that's different about managing remotely. What's different about managing work that's remote? Well, one is you have to be more explicit about your role. You probably have many different roles in your organization. You probably work with clients. You're the professional. You probably are the salesperson. You're probably the manager. You may even be the admin. You may be the strategic planner. You have all those different roles. When you're working remote, it's important to say which hat you're talking about. I'm wearing my manager hat now, and let's talk about this. Be more explicit about your expectations for them. and don't surprise them with check-ins the way maybe you can in an office situation. You can poke your head into somebody's office or cube and say, hey, what's going on with that Johnson file? Well, that can be a lot more disconcerting when you're doing it remotely. So you tell people, I'm going to ask you about the Johnson file on Wednesday. Can we prepare to talk about that for 10 minutes? No surprises. And let them tell you how busy they are. If you say to somebody, can you get this done by next Friday afternoon? They're probably going to say yes, because you're the boss. What they may not tell you is, I've got 6 other things on my plate. I'm going to have to let 2 of them go. And now you want to empower them to tell you that, so that they can say, I'm going to have to let 2 things go if you want it done by Friday. What are the 2 things that you think I should let go? So encourage people to tell you how busy they are. There's a little more stilted and structure in this kind of communication when you're doing it remotely, but it's useful and it pays off. What's different about managing professionals versus admin people? The biggest difference is at the top line here of each side. Professionals need blocks of time that's uninterrupted, so they can get into the flow, so they can really get their head into what they're doing. Admin's time is a lot more chopped up, and the kind of work that they're doing is also more chopped up. What that means for professionals is, have your meetings with them at the start of the day or at the end of the day, not in the middle of the day. Because even a half-hour meeting in the middle of the day, that's not a big interruption for a manager or for an admin, but it is for a professional who needs to get into the zone. And a half-hour meeting can ruin a whole afternoon because they might not get back to it. So have days for meetings. If you can't do it start at the end of the day, you might have days where you do all your meetings on one day and then don't have any meetings the rest of the day. And for both these kinds of people, you want to monitor production via software. And we've heard a lot about that. And in the tech talks today, we'll hear more software that you can use. You want to monitor what they're doing with software and not with meetings. It's much better at saving time that way. One other thing when we get remote management is you need to get better at meetings. Now, I don't think you'll ever get the applause that this guy's getting. I also don't think you're going to look as dorky as he does, but you can get better at your meetings. Here's a couple of tips. One is, regular check-in meetings reduce interruptions. A lot of times people have a daily check-in or maybe a weekly check-in, and they say, well, there's nothing really going on today. We can ignore that meeting. Don't. If you have that meeting and there's nothing going on, the meeting only lasts a minute. You're done. But if you know that it's going to be there, then I don't have to bother you with something this afternoon because I know we're meeting tomorrow, or I know we're meeting Monday and it can wait. So regular check-ins reduce interruptions. Status meetings are the worst. The worst meeting is where 5 or 10 people are sitting in a room. Everybody's going around. Here's what I'm working on. Here's what I'm working on. Here's what I'm working on. You should have software that tells that status. And your ideal software will tell you whether that status is red, yellow, or green. So we can ignore the greens. Everybody knows what's red and what's yellow, and then we can have an adjustment meeting, which means we just get together to look at the things that are red and see what do we need to adjust to make them green. That's a much more profitable meeting than a status meeting. And then you should be having one-on-one meetings with your direct reports on a regular basis. This is usually not about the work. It's about connection. It's about professional development. It's about things that they're hearing from their work with clients or their work in the office that you need to know about. So it's a whole different kind of meeting than status meeting. So that's a different way, and you can do all of these things remotely. Another thing about remote management is standardized communications. Now think about how many ways a colleague could get a hold of you right now. And here's the ways that I came up with that have nothing to do with any special software that's geared for accountants. All the software we've been hearing about today could eliminate a lot of this stuff. But otherwise, you have people just choosing. I'm going to chat with you on this one. I'm going to email you this. I'm going to leave a voicemail for that. Let me tell you a story. And here's the answer is pick a few platforms. Maybe you just have one if you've got one that's all encompassing. And then make some rules. The rules are about what's communicated on what platform and what time frame it takes for the response. So here's a story of a traveling salesman that I was working with. And he was on the road a lot. His staff was back in the office. They would email, text, voicemail. He'd go nuts with this stuff. What he finally said was, look, do not call me, no phone calls, no voicemail, unless there's fire or blood. I will interrupt whatever's going on. So I don't ever expect a phone call. Text me and I will get back to you in 2 hours. Between meetings, I'll check all my texts. But if you don't need a 2-hour turnaround, then email me and I'll get to it by the end of the day. Those simple rules made it very easy for everybody to know what's going on. I'm going to skip this for now. Here's my offer. I do couple of different kinds of coaching. You don't have to engage with me by May 15th. We can start after tax day, but let's talk about it before May 15th and you'll get half price off. And if you go to my scenario planning piece, you'll see a bit on a free scenario planning session. So thank you, David. I appreciate this. It's been great talking to everybody.
Hey, I love it. And, you know, if anybody wants to say thank you for John coming on, do so in the chat right now. Hey, thanks, John. There's a lot of people in the chat already saying, hey, love these tips. Great advice. I mean, this is what I was talking about. Nobody really talks about the practical, let's get into the weeds of management and what that looks like. So if you like this content from John, aside from going to his website, CEO Bootcamp, we're going to link that up in the redemption page. This is the other way to say thank you to John. Type it into the chat, and I recommend checking out his website. Again, big fan of John. I work with John. Thanks again for taking the time today to present.